How's it going? Judas here, bringing you another build video. Today we've got the StamSorc that I'm rocking in Summerset for the Summerset patch. Call the build Storm'sGuardian. It's a really balanced build. I know I didn't make a build video last patch and I said I was going to, but the build was out there. I've sort of took that build this time, added some little tweaks, added some little change, thrown in the Sigil scale line on the Overlord bar, and I've created a really nice build, really balanced, works well 2vx, works well solo 1vx. Quite tricky to get down this patch, but I'm getting a couple of clips. But yeah, just overall really nice build. Let's get into this. So I guess we'll break this this meditate and we'll get right into the sets. So yeah, like I said before, not very different to last patch, just a couple of tweaks, a couple of extra little things I've managed to throw in there that I'm sort of liking. I'm liking how it plays. Oops. I'm liking what I get from the build. So yeah, let's get into the sets. In terms of the armor pieces, first of all, Monster Elm, we're rocking Troll King. Really good set. Seems to be working better this patch. We go heavy in pen, max stam on the head, and then on the shoulder we go light, just to get the Undaunted. In terms of the max stats that I'm getting from this build, they're quite high. So overall, you want to be going for the Undaunted to max out those stats. So yeah, Troll King, really good defensive set. Open world is amazing. You know, StamSorcs, they lack the heals that they need to sort of be competitive in that open world 1vx situation. So Troll King makes up for that, and you'll see the food that I'm synergizing this with. The health recovery will shoot up. It's really good on top of your vigors and on top of your burst deal from your rally. The next set we've paired it with Hulkin. Hulkin's a really nice set in terms of just the max resources you're getting. Now as a StamSorc, you want a good base recovery, base stam recovery, but you want a nice max, and this really gives us the max. We can make up for the stam recovery in other ways. So obviously full medium on this, but we get the chest and the legs. I put some triglyphs on, just adds well to, like I said, the Undaunted before, and everything we get in terms of those max resources. You know, in a StamSorc, magic is always useful. Obviously the health for the survivability and the max stam you want anyway. So we go there on the chest, and it's still need to go that beast out, chest and legs, and the rest nice and simple. We just run max stam. I also throw, sorry, I said we have yeah, we've got another set in there, but the Ulkin Draugr then goes on the jewellery. So we go weapon damage on all three. I've been looking into changing things up. I've sort of done as much as I can on Summerset in terms of the new food, a bit of fishing, the Sigil skill line. I've not yet got into the chase ranging on the jewellery yet, but right now 174 damage, weapon damage on all of them. Incorrect, I said that before, but the next set we are combining is the Armor Master. Now on the body, on the 2H bar, you'll only get the 2-piece bonus and the 3-piece bonus, but it's really nice in terms of using it as a split bar. So we run max stam, we run just craft these pieces. You got feet, hands and waist, so 3 active. But if we switch to the sword and board bar, obviously you've guessed it, that's where we run the Armor Master to go with it. Go for the sword with the increased weapon damage on the infused. If you're going to run poisons rather than increasing your weapon damage, defending would be a lot better. And just impen and elf on the shield, just on that defensive bar, just to basically get a bit more defense out of it. Overall, I prefer the elf on the back bar. In terms of what the set gives, you're getting your max health, which is obviously really good. Let's move this forward. Open world, that's what you want for your survivability, your resistances. But then the 5th piece, if you have an armor ability slotted, max health increased by 5%. As I said before, it's going back to the stacking into things. You know, you always want, when you create a build, to stack in something. If you're stacking into it, add more. Anything that goes in the direction that you're building will ultimately make the build more effective. So that 5% on the max health is really nice. And then when we use an armor ability, you get the really high resistances for 10 seconds. So I use shuffle to get that. It is a medium build, but on this back bar you get some really good tankiness. You know, resistances are peaking around 27-28k, which on your defensive bar, you know, that really is what you want. So yeah, what else have we got to go through? Go through those. Oh yeah, then the 2H weapon that we throw, it's not combined into any sets, it's just a single 2H agility sword. Really nice two-piece. You get the 151 max stam, so overall that does add quite a bit of damage. Other options, you could go any two-piece, which gives a 129 weapon damage, both neuroned, but the other one stacks better on tooltips by like 100 weapon damage, 100 on tooltips, something like that, so that's why I go with the agility there. So yeah, I think I've covered most of the sets. Next we'll get into the skills. Actually, you know, before the skills, we'll go through the stats. The stats are what, you know, make or break a build. If you don't like the stats, you might not rock the build. It'll give you a choice in terms of, you know, are these stats viable for you? You know, can you run the regen? Do you like the maxes? Definitely better off going through the stats before we go through the skills. I'll just make my way down here to the target dummy so I can fully buff up, show you the buffed weapon damage as well. So yeah, we'll look at the resources first of all in terms of his max stats and his regions that we're getting. So character sheet. So max stamp 44k. You know, it's brilliant in terms of how it affects the tooltips. You know, it's the resource, the bank that you use to fuel your damage. But it scales really well with the amount of weapon damage we've got and what tooltips we actually get on this build. The good strong tooltips and damage with survivability from the tankiness. So nice amount of max stam. The tankiness also comes from the health. You know, we're peaking around 26k. I'm not sure different bars because of the 5% from the armor master, but we're peaking about 26k max health open world, which is exactly what you want. You know, the lower you have the health, the sort of more skill you've got to play with. You know, I can afford to make mistakes, and the Troll King to cover my ass, my heals to cover my ass, some dodge rolls to cover myself. You know, the amount of burst that's viable this patch. You know, you've got things like Slodes coming out, you know, Sorcs are hitting hard, Mage Blades are hitting hard. Hell, you know, anyone can throw on some sets and Zerg down and burst. You know, they might not be built for anything apart from just one intensely hard frag. You know, you've got to be able to take that stuff. So stack it into the max health as well. 26k, around 26k open world PvP. Magicka 11k, really nice in terms of how we can utilise the new Sigic skill line on the Overlord bar and the other things this StamSorc can use. Stam recovery 1/6 on both bars. For me, it's plenty enough in terms of how else can regen stam through other moves, moves like Dark Deal, Meditate, you know, finding line of sight, heavy attack weaves. You've got that sorted, that's covered. But you know, you might want to change it. You could bump up more recovery if you're happy playing that way by taking a weapon damage off of the ring. So you know, it's your call, it's up to you. The health recovery flat and buffed 990. We're getting a lot of health recovery from the food. I'll explain and go into that later on. But in terms of the Troll King on top of this and the StamSorc passives with being a Sorc and an Orc, you know, this stuff scales nice. This is extra healing, you know, to cover your ass. Magicka 637. You could make that higher with the regen on the Magicka, but it's not worth it in terms of the amount I've got, the max and the recovery I've got. That's just enough as a backup to utilise what a Sorc has to offer. Next we'll go into resistances. I'll buff up fully. So shuffle on, hurricane on, and then shuffle on. That gives us on the back bar 28k spell resist, 28k physical resist, 3k crit resist on the back bar, and slightly less on the front bar due to the impen on the shield. But you know, you keep it in shuffle most of the time. 10 seconds on the armor master gives you a really nice resistances. You know, medium armor, but sword and board allows this. Obviously bow would allow this as well, but I feel like the better tankiness comes from the sword and board. So really nice resistances. They do drop on the front bar. Obviously there's not a lot you can do. You've got a split bar set up. They drop to 22 and 25, but ideally you're going to know when you're on this bar how safe you've got to play it, whether you've got to be defensive. You know, you're severely outnumbered, you've got to wait for your time. You're not going to be on that bar when you know you're being chased down by people. You're naturally going to be on this bar, figuring up, healing up, getting away, getting your line of sight. So really good stats, really good resistances. We'll buff up on the weapon damage. I think the unbuffed we're looking at 3189, and buffed with the weapon damage of the back bar shoots up to 3.8, and you know, with the infused weapon you've got, this is increased by quite a lot, and you've got a really good uptime on it as well. So yeah, talked about everything. Nice stats. really impressed with what I'm getting. We'll go into the we talked about crit 29%. You know, you're gonna have to change skills around if you want to bump that up some more, which I really don't think is worth it. So yeah, guys, we'll go into the sets sorry, not sets. We'll go into the skills right now and look at how I play the 2H and sword and board setup. So the skills, we'll start with the 2H bar. We're running bound armaments, slotted obviously on both bars. This currently changed, this patch can be useful, sort of in terms of your block mitigation. I really didn't like the change at first, but in terms of what we utilise it for, it's not a bad change. You know, you don't need to toggle it on, it's just there on both bars now. So we're getting the 20% block mitigation for 3 seconds, which isn't bad. Not really worth the stamina though if you're sort of using it in that pressure situation. I'd rather be dark dealing for the stamina back to play on to get the burst. But obviously, like I said before, we like to stack into our maxes, and while slotted, as max stamina on both bars increased by 8%. You know, really good chunk there in terms of getting to the 44k and outlet effects tooltips. And then a really good change before the patch ago. This used to increase, I think it was heavy attack damage, it might have been both, don't quote me on it, but this time we've got light attack damage increased by 11%. And I'll show you in the video, you know, the light attack weaves that you can get in with the wrecking blows. In terms of the extra damage that creates, it sort of gives the Sorc a bit more damage, almost like a spammable, you know, like something that you can just cast and weave in all the time. You want to be utilising that and getting the max out of your damage. I'll go through tooltips after on the specifics. They look a bit low right now. I think my rally's dropped. So we go for the Stampede. In terms of the crit rush, you know, you can get extra damage from range, but I'm often not using it from range like a gank. So I'd rather go for the Stampede. Guaranteed crit all the time, and obviously the 60% snare for 4 seconds helps land the dizzy, sorry, keeping on top of the opponents. Reverse slice, I choose this over the other morph just obviously because the other morph gives more damage, but this has got the splash damage, which is really good in terms of sort of increasing like the AoE damage you can almost do. You can't do that on a Sorc unless you're using your Dawnbreaker, so Dawnbreaker and Execute. It's a nice way to get a few guys down at a time. Main spammable, Dizzy Swing, really hard hit in CC. You know this thing hits, they're CC'd. Often, you know, Sorcs sometimes drop the shields. You know, you can follow this up with a Dawnbreaker and an Execute, as you've seen in some of my videos, before people have landed, before people have even broke. So, you know, it is a good skill in terms of a CC and a hard hitting damage with the knockback. And then we have the rally, obviously ticking over for your heals, and you've got your burst heal, and you've got your increased weapon damage from that as well. And multiple on this bar, wouldn't take anything else. Dawnbreaker, you know, you can cancel it so hard. Even if people survive it, you can keep that pressure on because they've got the dot ticking. And obviously the more dots that you've got going for physical damage in terms of your hurricane, anything else that can proc, you've got the better chance of getting the implosion as well. So it's just an extra tick on that. You know, in my opinion, that's why dual wield Sorcs do really well. You know, they're outputting so much tick. Every tick is a roll on an implosion. So your chances aren't as good to get the implosion dual wield, but with the 2H and putting the pressure on, you know, it's a thing that can suddenly, you can Dawnbreaker guy, you know, they're recovering, you keep on top of them, eventually you might get lucky, they will drop, you know, if not, defensive, buff your weapon damage, heal up, go through that cycle again. While we're on this bar, we'll just go through some of the tooltips that we're getting. Buffed on the Dizzy, we've got 18k, buffed on the Dawnbreaker, we've got just under 18k, 17. If I buff these up some more, just with rally and the weapon damage, we go to 19.5 on the Dizzy. You know, for the resistances we've got and the maxes that we've got, you can get it higher, but I think this is nice. I think any other sort of increase that you get on it, you're putting it into sort of pure damage. You know, you might not land these Dizzies. Hell, if you've got a Nightblade rolling around, someone that knows how to get into the Dizzy Tango and walk through you, you know, you're not going to be landing these. So why max out something crazy high? You know, if you're not going to be playing that way and getting that burst down all the time, you've got to be clever with the way you play it. We'll just go through the Dawnbreaker. I think it's slightly lower, 19 on that, 19.4 on this. I mentioned earlier about the agility. If I put on the any two-piece that gives 129 weapon damage, anything like that as a two-piece bonus, you're not going to get as high. The way I've figured it out, you're getting sort of like 100 less on tooltips, so you'd just go for the agility for the higher resource and the higher damage as well. So that covers the 2H bar. Now we'll go into the sword and board bar. Passives, I'm not going to go through all that stuff. You know, just you'll read it, you'll figure out if it's something you utilise and if it's something you need. Obviously, get all the 2H passives, all the sword and board passives. You know, you'll know what you need. I'm not going to go through that stuff. So like I said, on this bar we need to run the bound armaments as well, just to make sure we've got that light attack damage on both bars and the resistance on both bars. One thing I've not mentioned about this, obviously, I talk about stacking into things, and we've got a really high base health recovery. That also comes from the Sorc ability. So if we look at the Daedric summoning skill line, you know, where are we? Yeah, Daedric protection. So all you've got to do is have one of these moves slotted. So obviously we have the bound armaments on both bars. Our health recovery and stamina recovery increases by 20%. You know, just for something on that you don't have to worry about. That's really good. That has a really good effect on your the base damage you're putting out and the base recoveries you've got. So really good all in all. I'd keep it this patch, and you've got the option to use the block mitigation as well. You know, you can block cancel this, so you're holding on what's likely going to come at you. Maybe an incap, maybe a frag, maybe a lol assault, just great beam in your face. You know, you can block that, still block mitigation. If you're in that situation where you've got the stamina to do that, you know, that's absolutely fine. Hurricane, really nice dot. You know, really easy to notice, really easy to keep up on your cycle. It's the pressures your opponents, good AoE to reveal people, and obviously you've got your resistance to that. Shuffle, the last sort of thing that medium armor's got. You know, I've tried heavy this patch, and in some situations it's a lot better. In some situations and some classes it is a lot worse. So, you know, rejoice, it's not just a shuffle that's allowing us to RNG dodge. It's a shuffle that's giving us resistance on both bars, so it works really well. Main bar dark deal, you could overload bar this only, but you know, you're never guaranteed on that situation. It's really nice just to get line of sight and to utilise the dark deals to replenish a lot of that stam. And then your vigor, your main heal. So you want to be keeping your buffs up all the time. So you've got your vigors ticking. You've got your rally dropping for your burst deal, the ability to block, find line of sight, get on your dark deals. You know, all those things you've got to utilise on the StamSorc. So that covers the back bar. We'll go on to then the Overlord bar now. Definitely have enough ult to fucking spam it on the Zergs. Kill those fuckers. Right, let's do this. Overlord bar. So yeah, like I said at the beginning, we've been rocking a lot of the things that Summerset's had to offer. One of the things I've got straight into is the Sigic skill line. You know, there's lots of guides out there. Just get, I don't know, an article which shows the pictures. Get that shit done. Really easy to do. But on this bar, the first Sigic skill, we rock Deep Thoughts. I've got the morphs. Still need to level these up. Really nice way to level these up. Get them on your bars. Go grind them dolmens to get that jewellery. You're getting the jewellery for your decon, and you're getting obviously this leveling as well. You don't need to do anything at all really there. So yeah, Deep Thoughts, it's so strong. You know, you think about your dark deals. If you get to a situation, you know, where you can find line of sight and you want to recover, you know, you don't want to always be relying on this dark deal. You know why dark deal when you can fill up fucking everything? So make sure you're on the line of sight. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Block cancel that. We might get like 4 seconds on it, but it's worth it. I'm not transferring magicka to stamina. Hell, I'm increasing everything, so it works so well. In terms of your evasiveness, if you want to get onto another bar, find line of sight. You know, you've got your dodge rolls, you've got your streaks. You can get 2 of those out easy, and we're still on this bar to do what we need to. Run rapids. Oh, sorry, not streak. We run ball of lightning. I never use this move offensively. Sort of like some builds do. You know, the point behind it is to escape, so I'd rather have the absorb projectile for 2 seconds, and I think it looks really cool. I don't know if streak itself creates that little ball. It probably doesn't, with this morph being the ball of lightning. Fucking yeah, obviously, but in terms of what it's giving me, how I use the skill, it works a lot better than streak in my opinion. Rapids, just because on fast forward mode, when you're into a keep on a mount, it looks funny as hell. Next one, Sigic Line Channel Acceleration. I went for this morph just because it lasts longer, and most of the time when I'm on this bar, I'm not just in the middle of a fight, you know, panicking. I'm on this bar because I've got a bit of time on my hands and I've found line of sight. So Channel Accelerate, 1.3 seconds. It's not bad. It's not a bad cast time. You know, you can put this on and you can still sort of move if you need to still get another line of sight off, which isn't bad at all, really. So 1.3 seconds channel time. Just under 3k cost, but then we're getting major expeditions for 9 seconds. You know, it's beneficial to have that speed, but then minor force for 36 seconds. You know, you're not going to be whacking crits out all the time. You can run crit pots. I've been doing that, and I've been seeing a greater chance of crit, and with obviously the multiplied crit damage by 10%, shit's hitting really hard. And I like to keep vigor on this bar. Just because, you know, you might get into a situation where you get caught on this bar. The last thing you want to do is get off and change bars without any heals. You know, the heals are really important, so keep it on. You can change it up, you can utilize other things if you like, but that's just personally what I like. Sort of covered set skills. Yeah, we'll talk about the food actually. So I've mentioned race. I'd go for orc in terms of how we stack our maxes and what we get out of the build. Without chalking, you know, I would go red guard to increase those maxes, increase those damage. But orcs are really nice all rounder. So food, yeah, I mentioned the food earlier. I can put into the back end of the video details on how to get this food. I know a lot of people have been struggling to get it, but we run the Artium takeaway broth. You know, this thing, it looks great, it is great, but it says it's a drink, but it's not a drink. It's buggy as hell right now. You know, it's working as a food, but this is really weird. If you look at the bar down there, you know, I've got a big ass green bar. So it's being recognised as a food right now. It's not being recognised as a drink. If you look on some of my clips, you can see it's a small bar, and I'm running the same food. So I can see, like, sometimes I'll load into PvP, then it will change. It will go to a small bar. So like the food is a little bit buggy, and you know, I like seeing the big bar. When I see the big bar down there, I think I'm sort of more confident. I'm just like, yeah, I've got a lot more resource anyway. It's just psychological, but it is where it is. The drink gives max health 3724. Stacking into health recovery, we're stacking into health recovery, max stam from the Ulkin along with this, and then the stamina recovery. It's not too difficult to get. I'll go through how to get it at the back end of the video, and the sort of the things that you need to put in. They're quite rare. I'll go through that. I'll go through it at the end. Alright, but that's just the food you want. Don't worry about it. It's not so hard to get, and it's not so hard to find the ingredients you need, even though it is a gold food. I'm not going to mention poisons on this build because I've not been running them. Pots, 3 different pots I've been testing. The essence of removability with the knockback, the crit, and the endurance. So, you know, sometimes when I'm running in group or 2vxing, I don't need that burst health recovery, and I want to play more sort of aggressively after I've got my channeled acceleration on. You know, these are good pots. Also, you've got the knockback with health and stamina, good all-round pot, and then speed and lingering. I've been really liking the extra healing I've been getting from these pots. You know, 898, you've got constant uptime on that, and you've got constant uptime on speed. So, you know, choose what you want in terms of what you can get out of the build in the situations that you're in. So what's next to talk about? We've talked about tooltips, we've talked about freaking everything. CP, I'll go through CP because there's some important points in there in terms of how the build stacks and works together. So into the CP. With CP, something champion points, something you really need to be aware of is that the returns are diminishing. So if you're not 750, if you're not max CP, sort of the higher you go with it, the returns that you get from each point diminish. So the difference isn't that much. So if you haven't got full or max CP, you can play this build just as viable. If you wanted to go into BGs, play non-CP, the build works just as good in there. Procs are more favoured in there, an easier way to sort of output damage. Obviously this build doesn't have any procs apart from implosion. I'd say there are stronger builds out there for pure no CP BGs, but if you're lacking CP and you're only around 400, 500, the build will still work just fine. Absolutely no problem at all there. So we'll jump right in. I'll try and explain some of the reasons behind my choosing 56 in Warlord, getting 20.15% reduced cost of break free. So as I said earlier, with the diminishing returns, the increments become less valuable the further up you go, so you want a percentage just to be over. It won't round up, so be really careful the way you do it. These aren't perfected at all, they're just sort of what I've found reasonable, what I've adjusted, what I've changed slightly. They're beyond no means perfect at all, but you can choose, you can play with them how you want. The 56 Warlord, then a split in this tree, 43 Mooncard for the stam recovery, get pumps a bit more out, and 43 with the magic recovery, 23 for the health recovery there as well. Befoul 24, 23% healing reduction is really good, and that can proc off your disease enchant, the befoulment, so it's quite good, it scales quite well. You're in medium, you can use dodge roll quite effectively to avoid damage and to avoid burst and to recover, so I got 61 in tumbling. Onto the blue tree, nothing in this one, so I separate this quite a different way. I got 25 physical weapons. If you read it, it increases your damage done with light and heavy attacks, so you will be heavy attacking when you want to bring back resources, as well as using dark deal to do that, but 15% scaling on the light attacks, which are doing more anyway from bound armaments. Seems to multiply and scale really well. So I like this. I like that. I'll show at the end of the video how to weave wrecking blows, weave dizzies, and a couple of other things. Your light attack is almost becoming your spammable this batch. You know, you've got to get them in there. So 25 physical weapon expert, and then go 72 master at arms. The returns diminish around 60, but they're at surplus points. I would rather have them in there. You could drop that, and if you're struggling against sorcs or shield stackers, you could go in shattering blows. But yeah, this is the way I set it up. Onto the next tree, pretty simple split. I wouldn't go Thermitage unless you were running Poison Inject or Rending Slashers, sort of bow on back bar, dual wield on back bar, not really worth it. Sometimes run the crit pots to bump up my crit, and with channel acceleration, the precise strikes is nice for the heals as well as the crit damage. So 37 gets a 15.10 in there, and then I share the rest in between. PSN 52, it doesn't scale too great, but I think this is really valuable without running sets like Spriggans, and obviously the light armor get the spell penetration, medium armor doesn't get anything like that. Heavy's really popular this patch with stam DKs, with stam wardens specifically, so the more penetration you have, the more valuable and better that damage will be. So I go 52 there, and then 64 into Mighty, getting me to the 13%, just getting me past the 13% mark. Then Ironclad, you know, burst is intense. The direct damage is what you want to reduce as much as possible. You know, your frags, it's sort of your instant damage big hits, you want to reduce them in caps, you want to knock them down as much as possible. So I take 72 in Ironclad. 36 in crit resist, doesn't scale too well, but I like the extra crit resist, sort of the tankiness you can get from reducing that crit damage, works out really well. And then a nice even split in this tree. Make sure you get the Unchained passive, so you can break free and instantly. I don't know, you maybe most of the time I try to shuffle if I've not got a vigor up, but a vigor you could put a vigor up. It's reduced its cost by 80%, so really nice. So even split for 43 in Ardy, 43 in Elemental Defender. Thick skinned really important on a class sort of like a Magpie and a Stambler. You just cleanse those dots off, keep on top of what they're building on you. On the Sorc, you've not really got that. You're going to take line of sight and recover, and ultimately you're carrying those dots with you. So I always pump up a bit more into thick skinned. 56 points, giving 20% damage mate on the dots, on the damage over time effects. And then nothing in this tree. So yeah, that is the CP. Next, I think what I've not mentioned Mundus. I'll quickly go through the Mundus. I really like the Serpent, sort of just to get me to that 1/6. I'm not confident enough to play with recovery lower than 1/6 and just rely on weaving, heavy attack, dark deals, that sort of thing. So take it and leave it. You know, you could go warrior more weapon damage. I know the tower scales really well to up that max resource and up that max stam as well. But yeah, overall I really just like the Serpent. So I believe that I've covered most things. A couple more things that I will go over just at the end right now. Obviously I talked about using the Overlord bar sort of evasively in terms of recovery, in terms of getting out of situations that you don't want to be in. In terms of the burst, the way you set up your burst, most of the time, you know, you want to make sure you've got all your buffs running. I just turn the volume on down there. Make sure you've got all your buffs up and running. Shuffle, Hurricane, your vigors are ticking in, before you engage, and the couple of options you can go with the heavy attack or light attack sort of into your stampede, so you've got your double hits there. You obviously want to make sure when you engage that you're weaving in the light attack to buff your weapon damage even more. So just really simple, you can just literally do a quick one and swap power on that. Nice way just to get that speed up. Then you want to obviously be following up with light attack dizzy. Now I talked about the empowerment of the light attacks this patch before, so really easy just to keep them up. I'll keep all of the buffs off and things at this stage, just to show you sort of the weaving with them. But so you want to go light attack dizzy, then as soon as the dizzy hits, wind in another light attack, then straight back onto the dizzy again, and it'll speed up the animation. The rotation will be a lot better, and that'll be the extra damage. Obviously it's quite tricky to get on players that are moving, but if you lock them down and snare them up, it does become quite easy. You can easily practice on a target dummy, so you just want to be engaging with the light attack into dizzy, and another light attack straight after. So you can see I've got it down in this situation where the light attack comes off at the end and the dizzy continues straight away. That's a really nice way of putting pressure on your opponents, getting that extra damage in. And if they go off the ground, instantly you want to be cancelling the Dawnbreaker on them as they land, and then followed up by executes. Even if they're dodge rolling and they survive, and they look like they're going to survive, keep that pressure on. You've got a chance to get them down again to proc implosion. So just keep the pressure up. But that's the way I tend to play StamSorc this patch. If your burst doesn't work and you're in a tricky outnumbered situation, you can go back into the defensive bar. You've got really good healing there, really good tank ability. So let me know what you guys think. Please comment and share. Tell me if you think it's something that you want to enjoy playing. If there's any questions you've got about the build, any questions you've got about the setup, I'll try and get some more gameplay out there. Hopefully I'm wanting to get into BGs, adjust the build to BGs and make a pure non-CP StamSorc build that will still be 2H and sword and board. But overall, just enjoying this. I'll try and get out and get some more solo gameplay, and maybe do a sort of a bit of a guide in terms of playing and commentating on the PvP that I've been doing. But that's it for now, guys. Really appreciate the followers, the subscribers that I'm getting, the comments that I'm getting. So enjoy the build, take care, take it easy. Judas.